Hello everybody and welcome back to firepowergaming.com. This is a quick update as I've got a couple of pieces of news I'd like to share with you all. The first one is that after becoming increasingly frustrated with my sound quality on my previous few podcasts, I've decided to splash out on this handsome fella. So purchased as part of the Amazon Prime Day sale. I managed to pick it up for about 15 quid, reduced from about 25, and it's described as a condenser microphone. Got some really good reviews, and from a company called Evotor. So hopefully that's going to really improve the quality of the interviews and the podcast going forward. So really looking forward to that. Trying that in anger. The second thing I just wanted to show you was a little bit of hobby progress. So I've finished the vast majority of my infantry now for Dux Britanniarum, which is great. And I have just got now some of these character figures, if they'll come into focus, to finish. This one I'm really like, kind of the warrior monk, and this was from a company called First Corps, and if you haven't seen First Corps before, I really recommend them. This is again one of my nobles, and this is a gripping beast metal. So really are starting now to get to the final kind of stages of the project, and that'll be my Romano British finished, and then onto the Saxons. So looking forward to that. Something else that's also been occupying a little bit of my time has been these little fellas down here. So my first two units of my 10mm Austrians. I was ruminating around how I was going to base them, and in the end went for 30 by 20 bases, so I could get 8 minis on a stand, and I think they look sufficiently dense. Obviously metal bases, so I splashed out a little bit for those, but that will mean that they can be magnetised in my storage box, which I just find is just so much easier than having to use MDF bases, even if it is a little bit more fiddly to get the miniatures to stick to the base, and the base in itself can be a little bit more tricky. But I'm really pleased with how they've come out. The next step will obviously be to finish off the basing, and what I normally do on my smaller scale stuff is a mix of PVA and burnt umber paint. Slap all that down on the base in between the minis, and then some very fine sand. And what I found is the paint in the glue gives some really nice tone to the sand, so it's not uniform. You do get a much darker appearance to the sand, and then there'll be some small dabs of flock and this kind of thing put on just to make it look a little bit more irregular, and then a final blast with the varnish. So those guys are coming along. I suppose this really springs from playing sharp practice games with my mate Nige, and it's really whetted my appetite now to start to think about doing some bigger games, and very interested in the moment in 1809 and the campaign in Germany. So that's really cracking on now. But the meat of what I wanted to talk about today also relates to another purchase. I don't know if you can see this, but this is from a company called Stonewall Miniatures. And Stonewall are really interesting in that they have a very comprehensive range of 15mm Napoleonics. And I bought some of their bare metal figures, and I must admit I decided that they weren't for me, and I was going to stick with my AB and my museum and my campaign game miniatures for my 15mm Napoleonics. But then I saw a thread on the interwebs about their painting service, and so I decided that I would have a punt and I would buy some painted cavalry. So these are Fusiliers de Cheval, so they're French cavalry. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them. They cost me in total £21, including the cost of postage. And obviously the interesting thing about these guys is that they come pre-painted. So you are obviously paying slightly more money for the miniatures to come in this state, but for £21 I really don't think that's too bad. And as you can see, I'm struggling manfully to do this one-handed, so let me pause the video. Okay, so after a little bit of fumbling around with the plastic bag, this is what I want to show you. So I haven't really looked at these in detail myself properly yet. Obviously the horses and the riders have been painted separately. They do come bagged together, so I'm looking for any kind of signs of damage, but I can't really see any. Maybe around the brim of the hat, and but it's very, very minor. I mean, they certainly, yeah, I would consider them painted to a reasonable standard. Certainly tabletop ready. Yeah, I don't know if they've necessarily been washed, but you know, I think that that's a decent job. And from 3 foot away, I think that that's going to look very, very presentable on the table. I wouldn't say at all that they're up to the standard of your, you know, your professionally painted miniatures, you know, your real artisan guys, but for £21, you really can't beat it. Now this guy is obviously some form of musician with his cornet. You've also got an officer in the pack, and then a further 10 Fusiliers themselves. The nice thing about these is that they come unbased, so you really, I mean, yes, there's a little bit of tidy up to do on the bottom of the base, but I think they've been cleaned up reasonably nicely prior to painting. I certainly can't see any particularly noticeable pieces of flash or mould lines. So obviously I've got the freedom to base them how I wish, and given my hate of painting cavalry, I think for £21 that's a good value. And it also makes me consider whether I should not consider picking up a pack of their painted infantry as well as a further comparison. So there you go, that's the real substance of today's video. 12 Fusiliers de Cheval 15mm Napoleonics from Stonewall Miniatures, using their painted miniature service, costing the grand total of just over £21, including postage. So have a look, and if you've got any comments or observations to make, please stick them in the comment section under this video. And if you are watching this video and you've enjoyed the other content on the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please do consider doing so and giving us a like as well. So thank you very much indeed for watching, and look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.